Hello and thanks for joining our special edition of ArirangNews. French President Emmanuel Macron, who's currently in South Korea, met with President Lee Jae-myung earlier this morning at the Blue House. This is their third in-person meeting following talks on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Canada and the G20 summit in South Africa last year. And in just a few moments, we will bring you live coverage of the two leaders' joint press conference. Now, while we wait for that to begin, we're joined today by Dr. Dylan Motang, visiting scholar at the Seoul National University Asia Center. Dr. Motang, thanks for coming in again today.
Very glad to be here.
So this is Macron's first visit since taking office in 2017, right? And this makes him the first French leader to visit Seoul in 11 years. What makes this so significant?
Well, Macron was supposed to come to South Korea for at least the last 2 years. Since President Yoon came to Korea, but Macron didn't reciprocate by coming to South Korea. But there were, of course, all the instability in South Korea following the December 2024 events, the impeachment crisis, the elections, and on Macron's side, he has been very busy with organizing the Olympic Games. Then he had to deal with a political crisis when he dissolved the National Assembly. So for all of that, it was delayed. And this year was ideal because it marked, as you just said, a very important anniversary. And also because Macron is leaving office very soon, and he has to think about his successor.
Right.
So because he's now in a very tight spot in French politics, he is quite unpopular. So he needs to find success abroad. He needs to bring back investments and symbolic wins to further his own party and to give a fighting chance to a candidate from his own party to win the next election.
Right, and how might they have addressed the war in the Middle East?
So both countries are trying to walk this thin line where they want the war to stop, because they want to secure their oil supply, they want to stop the current spike in oil prices. But at the same time, they want to remain careful not to angry too much Donald Trump, which is already quite aggravated by the fact that neither France or South Korea or other allies participate in the war. So Macron and a few other European and Middle Eastern countries have proposed the idea of a coalition to unblock the Hormuz Strait, and I would guess he talked about that with Lee Jae-myung. But this is not really clear yet, and we're talking about 40 countries, so it will be very long to put in place. And he has made clear already that he did not consider a direct military intervention against Iran, but just some kind of mission to protect ships who pass through. So we'll have to see whether Korea is ready to participate to such an armed mission to escort ships.
Right, and especially because Trump has been hitting out at France and other European allies, and Trump has been threatening to pull out from NATO, right? Yes,
so because of US law, it would be quite hard for him to just pull out of NATO. He would need to have the agreement of Congress. And a lot of congressmen, both Democrats and Republicans, will be deadly opposed to exiting NATO. But there would be consequences over the long run. Definitely, there's a loss of trust on both sides. The Europeans now are wary that the Americans are acting without consulting them. And the Americans have the sense that the Europeans are not being very loyal when it comes to the alliance. So you could expect that the alliance will become far more conditional and far more transactional moving forward. And the US will be very adamant to push burden sharing on the shoulders of the Europeans.
Right, right. And back to this summit between President Lee and Macron, what are some other key bilateral issues they are likely to have addressed in today's talks?
So for sure, it was about the economy. Both Macron and Lee tried to secure investments from big companies from the other side to their own country. Actually, we often forget this, but France is the number 3 investor in South Korea. So I'm sure that President Lee tried to build on this to get French companies who work on very specific technological niche to come to South Korea. There were also some bit of trade tensions between the two, notably in the domain of electric vehicles, where South Korean producers have been complaining that recent French regulations were kind of discriminating against them. So I would guess they addressed this too.
Right, and despite that, many Korean companies are looking to expand to France. What makes the French market so attractive to Korean firms?
So if you compare with other European countries, France has a relatively big population, so which means, of course, a more attractive market, almost 70 million people. And also, it is relatively young. So it means that it's a target for many of South Korea's key products, be it cars, electronics, home appliances, even cosmetics. So in terms of demographics, it's one of the key markets in Europe. Also, if you think in terms of geography and logistics, it's one of the European countries the easiest to access by sea, be it from the Mediterranean or from the Atlantic. And it can serve as a hub to re-export into neighboring countries, into Northern Europe. So even for that, you want to have some kind of presence in France to be able to quickly export in neighboring countries.
Right. And this morning, actually, Korean Air set aside a memorandum of understanding with French aerospace company ExoTrail to develop an orbit transfer vehicle. So is space technology another field that these two countries can cooperate on?
Sure. So the specific case of ExoTrail, so this company is relatively young, but has been developing new technologies to move satellites or payloads within space from one position to another. So that's why I think it's interesting for Korean companies. And if you look at the broader picture, France is almost a full spectrum spatial power. And something very important, it has a base very near the equator in French Guiana. And if you want to send a lot of load into space, you need to launch it as close as you can from the equator, right? So it will be very interesting for South Korean companies to try to get access to French launchers and French facilities to launch heavy satellites into space. And perhaps if you look at the broader picture in the long run, South Korea may want to develop this kind of relationships with France and other European countries, not to be so dependent on American technologies like the GPS, for instance, to have other options over the long run.
Right. And Macron will also meet with executives from Korean companies like Samsung, Hyundai Motor, and Naver. Right. What can we expect, and how have economic ties evolved so far between these two countries?
Sure. So the bilateral trade was about 13 million euros. Maybe it would be in dollars, maybe 15 billion. And it is relatively balanced on both sides in terms of export and imports. But Macron would like to reorganize this relationship in order to have something more focused on technology and investment.
Right, Dr. Martin, sorry to interrupt you. I think they will hold it seems like they're going to hold a press conference pretty soon. We'll come back right afterwards.
First of all, President Lee Jae-myung of the Republic of Korea will provide his remarks. Honorable President Emmanuel Macron and distinguished members of the French delegation, I would like to once again, together with the people of Korea, extend my sincere welcome to you. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1886, France has stood firmly by our side for 140 years as a trusted friend. During the Korean War, we fought together in comrades in arms, and throughout the development of our industries, such as nuclear power, high-speed rail, and biotechnology, France has been a supporter throughout. Today, we enjoy K-pop and K-content together, and we're building a relationship of friendship and trust. President Macron and I, based on the long-standing friendship and solidarity, we have agreed to elevate our bilateral relationship to a global strategic partnership. We also adopted a joint statement reflecting our firm determination to further develop our bilateral relations in a future-oriented direction. In addition, we have revised 3 agreements and signed 11 memoranda of understanding. Please allow me to outline the outcomes of today's summit. First, we agreed to strengthen economic cooperation between our two countries and further expand trade and investment. Although bilateral trade reached a record high of $15 billion last year, we cannot fall complacent. With the goal of reaching $20 billion by 2030, our two countries will work together and muster our strengths. I would like to highly commend the decision by French company Air Liquide to make an investment of approximately $3.5 billion in Korea last year. Building on this momentum, we will continue to make joint efforts to promote mutual investment in emerging industries and to expand employment opportunities. We hope the numbers of the jobs created, currently around 40,000, can grow to 80,000 over the next decade. Second, we agreed to promote joint growth in advanced science and future industries and to actively create an environment that will enable both countries to leap forward together as global leaders in innovation. The letter of intent on cooperation in AI, semiconductors, and quantum technology signed today, as well as the ministerial-level Joint Committee on Science and Technology held today, they will serve as important foundations for securing new growth engines. The Memorandum of Understanding signed today between Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power and the French companies Orano and Framatome will not only ensure a stable supply of nuclear fuel for our power plants, but also lay the groundwork for joint entry into the global nuclear energy market. The Memorandum of Understanding concluded between KHNP and EDF will make a significant contribution to the growth of the offshore wind power industry. In addition, through the letter of intent on cooperation in critical mineral supply chains, we have established a solid foundation for the stable development of the critical minerals industry. Furthermore, in future security fields such as space and defense, we will continue to expand mutually complementary cooperation. Third, we agreed to strengthen cultural cooperation, which is a core pillar of friendship between our two countries, and open a new era of 1 million people-to-people exchanges. First, through the protocol revising the Korea-France Cultural and Technological Cooperation Agreement, we expect to further expand cooperation in areas such as esports. Through the revised Working Holiday Agreement and the Air Services Agreement, whose revision process is nearing completion, we believe that the exchanges among tourists, business people, young people, and students will become more brisk. In addition, to help future generations better understand each other, we have agreed to expand the number of Korean language learners in France and French language learners in Korea by 100,000 by the year 2035. We expect that the letter of intent for language assistant teacher exchanges signed today will contribute greatly to this goal. The MOU on cooperation in cultural heritage concluded between the both countries will provide an excellent opportunity to introduce the rich and historic cultural heritage of our nations, including Jongmyo Shrine and the Basilica Saint-Denis in France. On the occasion of President Macron's visit to Korea, the Pompidou Center Hanwha Seoul will newly open in Yeouido, Seoul. It will enhance public access to French art and is expected to become one of Seoul's iconic cultural landmarks that enrich the daily lives of our people. Based on these diverse achievements in cooperation, our two countries will vigorously usher in a new era of 1 million people-to-people exchanges. Finally, as global strategic partners, the two countries have agreed to further strengthen joint responses to global challenges. President Macron has kindly extended an official invitation for me to attend the G7 summit to be held this June in Evian, France. As the G7 chair, France is expected to demonstrate strong leadership in addressing global economic imbalances and reforming international partnerships. The Republic of Korea will actively contribute its wisdom. Furthermore, our two leaders shared a deep understanding that he also proposed a joint hosting of the film festival this year, and I would like to thank him for his invitation, and we will also try to make this opportunity to gain and to better expand the film industry. We also shared a deep understanding that the peace on the Korean Peninsula affects not only Northeast Asia and Europe, but across the entire world. France, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, has consistently expressed unwavering support for the Republic of Korea's policy toward the Korean Peninsula. I explained in detail that our government is working to resume dialogue and cooperation between the two countries and is doing its utmost to build a future of peaceful coexistence and shared prosperity. President Macron also reaffirmed that France's support for peace and stability on the peninsula will remain steadfast. In addition, President Macron and I agreed to jointly respond to the economic and energy crisis triggered by the Middle East war by sharing policy experiences and strategies and working together to reduce global economic uncertainty. We also reaffirmed our commitment to strengthen energy security by expanding cooperation in nuclear power and offshore wind energy, and to working together to ensure safe maritime transport routes in the Strait of Hormuz. Through today's summit, we have reaffirmed the deep friendship between our two countries built over 140 years and strengthened our firm determination to create new opportunities for the next 140 years. The more closely connected our two countries become and the broader the horizons of our cooperation grow, the more prosperous the lives of our peoples will be and the more opportunities future generations will gain. This will also make a significant contribution to addressing shared global challenges. Going forward, I hope to continue close communication with President Macron as we work together to shape the future of the next 140 years. President Macron, once again, I sincerely welcome your visit to Korea. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Next, we will hear from President Macron, the President of the Republic of France.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président de la République, cher Li.
Thank you very much, President
Mesdames, Messieurs les
Lee,
ministres, parlementaires,
and also all the ministers
Mesdames,
and
Messieurs, vos grades et qualités, Mesdames,
excellencies,
Messieurs,
the ambassadors.
Chers
Thank you
présidents,
so much
d'abord,
for
votre
all
accueil
your
très chaleureux à
efforts.
l'occasion de
And
première
thank
visite
you
officielle en République de Corée
for
en tant que président
your
de la
warm
République,
hospitality.
alors que nous célébrons ensemble 140
This is
années
my
de
first
relations
official visit
d'amitié
to the
entre nos deux
Republic of
pays.
Korea, and
Merci pour
our
l'accueil
two
chaleureux
countries
hier et
had established
et les
diplomatic
échanges
ties
très approfondis
140
que nous avons eus
years
ce matin
ago,
en
and
format restreint, puis
during our last night's dinner. Thank you so much for your warm welcome. And Republic of Korea and France, we have signed a lot of MOUs today, including the hydrogen power, and I believe that this will contribute to the co-prosperity of our two countries. And as you said, we have talked a lot about the international crisis, and we have agreed in many parts. And our two countries will play an important role in keeping peace and also the conditions of the process regarding the crisis in the Middle East and the international order and norms that we would have to agree on, and it will lead to a sustainable peace across the world. And as such, we had shared a common vision on the peace on the Korean Peninsula, and the permanent peace in this region is very important. And we also talked about the areas of public health, and we had come to a lot of agreements, and also I also extended the invitation to the G7 summit, and we believe that we will have more chances to have a dialogue on the international crisis, and we will have more opportunities to talk about cooperation, windows of cooperation in many different sectors, including public health. And we are living at a time where the international landscape is unstable. And so we would need to have an agreement on what our roles are. And to this end, the shared information of strategic information will have to take place. And like the friendships, we are looking forward to a new event that will take place in mid this year. And our two countries, we believe that it is important that we have the common understanding and also have our gratitude to our war veterans. And that is why the first thing I did as I landed in Korea was to pay a visit to the war veteran related event. And we are in full agreement in many strategies, and also we will cooperate in the military and defense-related production. And looking at the trade between the two countries in 2025, it had gone over 130 billion euros, and I believe that this shows the brisk exchange and trade between the two countries, and the trade has been very much active, and including AI and quantum science and many other sectors. We will cooperate even more. I had a chance to meet with Korean companies, and we have talked about our visions going forward. And in particular, in the afternoon, we are to attend an economic forum, and here we're going to talk about the areas of biotechnology and many other sectors, as well as a nuclear power sector. And carbon-free is also an important initiative. And we will strengthen more partnership in this regard, including the entire life cycle of nuclear power. Also, the cooperation in the R&D area will be strengthened, especially in the nuclear power area. And in the economic sector, we will strengthen what we have laid already. And there are a lot of French companies that were involved in the high-speed railway project in Korea, and I believe that they made great contributions to the advancements in Korea. And in the culture area, we have an agreement in terms of culture that has been living for a very long time. So our two countries are cultural powerhouses, and also we have great opportunity to expand this into an innovative area, especially in the area of immersive arts. We believe that there will be more opportunities. And just now, I am very happy that I was able to attend the Pompidou Center opening ceremony, and as such, I believe that our two countries, the cultural advancement will go in tandem into the new future, especially in this year, September, we are going to hold a video and the innovative video-related conference, and we are the co-chair of this conference. So I believe we would have more areas of cooperation in this regard, especially including K-pop and the film festivals. I know that it is quite popular in Korea as well as in France. So the people, the production companies in the filming industries, they are also actively in exchange with each other. And the R&D Center for Science and Technology are working closely together, and we have the Minister for this Science and Technology who is in the delegation this time, so I believe that this will be a great chance for us to deepen our cooperation. We will also work toward a brisker people-to-people exchange, and to this end, we have signed an MOU, and I believe that this will spill over to the tourism sector as well, and also the language teacher and assistant program. Through this, we will be able to revitalize the language exchange programs and study programs. Distinguished guests, for the last 140 years, our relations have been intact, and I believe that this will be a good foundation for us to leap forward. we have so many attractions to each other, not only in the science and technology areas, but also in gourmet and in a lot of cultural and content aspect. Although the global landscape is very volatile at this moment, we have a deep foundation of trust in each other. And with today's visit and your visit to Evian in G7, I believe that these will be contributing to a deeper bilateral relations. I hope to work more closely together with the Republic of Korea and for a better world, for a more peaceful world. I hope that we can work together to a more reliable relations, bilateral relations.
네, 이상으로 공동 언론 발표를
This concludes
마치겠습니다.
the joint
참석해
statement.
주신 언론인
Thank you
여러분,
very much.
감사합니다.
Nous arrivons ainsi au terme de la déclaration.
Now that was our live coverage of the joint press conference following a summit between President Lee Jae-myung and French President Emmanuel Macron. So, Dr. Motang, we just heard these two leaders speak at the press briefing. What do you make of today's summit?
Well, I should say that I haven't heard anything which was very surprising or very unexpected. I think that the most concrete announcements were about space cooperation and nuclear fuel cooperation. And something also which was quite problematic in the relationship was the imbalance between the K-wave in France and the quick growth of the study of Korean language in France compared to the decline of French language in Korea. So I think that was addressed by the two leaders. And it was announced that there would be a lot more French teachers recruited very soon. So I think that was one of the main issues between the two countries which has been solved today. We've heard about the G7 participation, where Lee Jae-myung will try to push his agenda about North Korea. And we've heard very little concrete results about what to do in Iran and in the Hormuz Strait. But at least the two countries share the same point of view that the war should stop as soon as possible, but they will not join in.
Right. So a lot on the agenda, a lot discussed in their talks, and it mostly focused on economic issues and cultural issues, like you mentioned, Ray.
Yeah, so announcements of investments on both sides. We knew that Macron would insist on AI because he really wants to create this sovereign AI environment back in France. When it comes to Korea, even more cooperation for hair liquid, which means more cooperation in terms of hydrogen, because South Korea is trying to put in service buses and trucks which work on hydrogen, not fossil fuel.
Right.
So more on this and more globally on green energy. I think that was the heart of their agreements.
Right. All right, Dr. Motang, thank you so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Now, that's all we have for today's edition of Arirang News Special. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.